What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03, and I'm starting to get cautiously optimistic about this Pistons team. The Detroit Pistons will play their first NBA Cup, formerly known as the NBA in-season tournament game, tonight. It will be a matchup against the Miami Heat at 7 p.m. local time. In this video, we're going to go through three things that I'll be looking forward to in this game, things that I want to observe and pay attention to, and just do some general overall preview stuff. So the first thing that I'll be paying attention to is just everything related to this game being an NBA Cup game. In case you guys don't know much about the NBA Cup, this is something new that they brought into the NBA last year. The most broad, brief overview is we have 4 of these games on the schedule throughout the month of November and the start of December. We'll be playing against the Heat in the first game, and then we'll be playing against the Pacers, Bucks, and Raptors, as we are a part of their group known as East Group B. So after that point in time, the best team from each group will go on to play against each other. If they make it to the Final Four, they'll have an additional game scheduled. If they win their game in the Final Four, then they'll have one more game scheduled after that for the finals. But either way, should be a little bit interesting. Kind of a side note, I wasn't exactly too crazy about them adding this into the league last year. I'm a big, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I guess I do understand the other side of the coin and see why they did it. So either way, be paying attention to just everything related to that. I think that they'll have a pretty crazy court, as you can see on the screen, which will make it obvious and clear that you're watching an NBA Cup game. And there might be just an inkling of raised intensity. I think that the Pistons have done a good job of bringing the intensity to all of the games for the most part this year. So don't think things will change that much. One certain small thing about these games is the point differential between the games for the NBA Cup do count as a tiebreaker. So if it is a blowout one way or the other, don't expect teams to just pull all of their starters like they normally would and just not really care, dribble the clock out at the end of the game. Last year, we saw some teams taking shots where normally they'd kind of gentleman's rule it and dribble out the clock, and that caused commotion. But I don't really see this being all that different than a normal regular season game for us. So the second thing that I'll be paying attention to is just the injury watch in general. So for starters, the Miami Heat, they're probably their best player still, Jimmy Butler, has been ruled out for this game. That will be something we touch on in observation number 3 as well. But we'll also be paying attention to see if Jalen Duren plays. Jalen Duren has missed the last 2 games with a sprained ankle, but he hasn't been confirmed to be out for the game tomorrow. He could be back. We'll probably have news on this before game time, but we'll be paying close attention because Jimmy Butler not being there, that makes a difference. If Jalen Duren can return, that also makes a difference because Bam Adebayo is a very good all-star caliber center on the Miami Heat roster. Hard guy to deal with, and I think Jalen Duren could help, especially after the last game against the Rockets where we got more or less annihilated on the glass during crunch time. So we'll be interested to see if Jalen Duren is able to return, and we'll also be interested to see how the Miami Heat look without Jimmy Butler. And that is kind of my third point that I'll be paying attention to, and that is, will our guards be able to get off against the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler? The Pistons have already played the Miami Heat this year once. It was the 4th game of the season. They lost that game by 8 points. Cade had 24 points. Jaden Ivey had 18. Tim Hardaway had 20. So our guards already did a pretty good job of scoring the ball against the Miami Heat. But when you look at the roster without Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat will probably be rolling out with guys like Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero at their starting guard spots. Alec Burks, our former player, our former Piston, will probably get a little bit more run than he normally does. Duncan Robinson. But the one thing about all of those guards just listed, they're not that great of defenders. So this very well could be a primed game since Jimmy Butler is not playing and the Miami Heat don't have that many awesome perimeter defenders outside of them for Cade or Ivey to have a huge scoring night. So we'll definitely be paying close attention to that because I really think that guys like Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier are not going to be as good of defenders as players like Cade have faced over the course of the last couple games. Jimmy Butler, of course, does a very good job, even at 35 years old, of holding down the perimeter and taking on tough matchups for the Miami Heat. But without them, I think that Cade or Ivey even could end up having a very, very big game tonight against the Miami Heat. All in all, would just love for us to get this win tonight after losing to the Rockets by 2, having a bunch of close games over the course of the past week. I really think that we're trending in the right direction, but since we're trending in the right direction, we want the wins to be able to start stacking up to prove that. Getting this win would not only be cool because it's an NBA Cup game, and that could be a whole different thing potentially if they end up winning a few more of those NBA Cup games. But right now, the Eastern Conference is pretty much in a gridlock outside of the 1 and 2 seed, who is the Cavs and Celtics respectively. So a win right now would shoot us up the Eastern Conference standings board by a good margin. I think that it's clear and obvious that it's way too early in the season to be too worried about that type of stuff. But with the way that this Pistons team is, I think that it'll be much, much, much harder for us to eventually make a run at the play-in if we have to dig ourselves out of the 13th or 12th seed trying to claw and fight our way into that 10th seed. I think that the more realistic and likely outcome, if we were to make the play-in, would be that the Pistons start to stack up some wins here before Christmas, and then next thing you know, we're sitting in the 7th seed, we're sitting in the 8th seed, and then we just kind of hang on for the remainder of the year. So, despite the fact that the Pistons have all in all looked better, of course, still lots of flaws than they did last year anyways, I think that starting to stack up some wins and starting to execute on some of these games that have been close will be huge for the Pistons going forward. And I think that without Jimmy Butler in the lineup, there is no reason at all that this game could not be a Pistons win. I think it's very likely. Matter of fact, I'm just kind of curious. I want to see here if I can see what the line is for this game. Not because I want to bet on it, but I'm just curious to see what Vegas and the sportbook odds makers are starting to kind of think about the Pistons, especially since they're at home and playing against the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. So just out of curiosity, you're going to look here. Yeah, the Miami Heat are only 2.5-point favorites now. They were 4.5-point favorites until Jimmy Butler got ruled out. So 2.5-point favorites. This game is more than possible for us to win. So let me know what you guys think. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm not crazy about the NBA Cup. I'm not getting up for the NBA Cup, maybe like some of you all are. But be curious to know if anyone feels differently about that and everything else in the game in general. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch up with you soon.